Well, howdy folks. Welcome to another video. This is one I've been dying to get out to y'all for 8 long years. Yep, we actually bought this before silver and we've been working on it behind the scenes, a little here, a little there. It's time to let the beast run, bring him out of his lair and see what he can get into. Are we done? Absolutely not. There is still so much more to do on this rig, but it is time to get it out, do some trial by fire, taste, feel, just get into it, see what we want to do, see how we want to build it out, see all the stuff that, you know, just makes life in a vintage overland rig a little more comfortable. Because let me tell you, this thing is different. Coming from a Lexus to a Land Cruiser from 1980, it's a very visceral experience. You smell burnt 91 octane. Yeah, it's high octane. Why? Because we've got a Ramjet 350 under the hood putting out 350 horsepower and 400 foot-pounds of torque through a Toyota 5-speed H45 transmission that is a little less than pleased with all that power. So again, like I said, we'll test it, try it, probably break a few things along the way and continue to build out this incredible rig. You're going to want to ride along for this one.
Alright guys, Christmas is over, New Year's is over, we're in 2019, lots of new things. I'm visiting here with my family in Tennessee, getting over the flu, the most nasty flu I've ever had in my life, the worst sore throat I've ever had in my life, but new things. So today is the day that the beast goes under the knife. It's going to get a lot of rust fixed, so places like this right here, fill up some of these holes that aren't needed, fix some of this stuff we got going on, and a fresh coat of paint so that hopefully this thing will be set for another 10, 15, 20 years. It's just been sitting and degrading, and we want to get this thing taken care of so that it doesn't continue to go downhill. And we'd like to eventually start building this thing out. Now, this is a slow build. I don't look for the next episode to be like, yeah, we're moving into it kind of thing, but it's on the list. And as we get time, as we get funds, or as necessity warrants, we're going to be working on this thing, getting it built up to travel. So yeah, that's the beast. We did a little before walk around video just to kind of show you guys what we're working with, and I'm excited. I'm excited. We've had this thing for what, 6 years now? I can't believe it's been 6 years and we're just now getting to this. But this is a family member, never selling it, so don't make any offers unless you come with 6 figures, 7 figures. It's getting real, y'all. It's getting real fun. So let's go get this thing painted.
After an entire year in the body shop, our Land Cruiser was finally rust-free and topped off with Toyota Cement Gray, which seems to have a timeless appeal on this vintage rig. After spending all of 2020 in storage, with an occasional drive to keep the Ramjet 350 lubricated, we leased a place in Utah with a huge garage and shop for the continuation of the build. Our first big addition, a Kmart rear bumper to hold the heavy spare tire, provide some room for water cans and gear, and maybe even handle some future towing duties. But more on that later. We're no stranger to the Kmart brand and have been running their bumper on our GX460 for nearly 2 years now. Kmart has been building bumpers in Australia for decades and is now available through Kmart America stateside. To open up the mounting points, I enlisted a bit of help from Caroline, who's beginning to spend more and more time with me in the garage as she gets older. She never ceases to amaze me with how quick she picks up on the mechanical processes, which is a good thing, since this rig will likely be hers one day and will be needing plenty of TLC in the coming years. It's not often that you get to grow up next to your own future ride, but she's gotten to see this Land Cruiser's process from when we bought it just 4 months after she was born. You cleaning the beast one last time? Yeah. Doing a great job. Of all the bumpers we've installed over the years, this was one of the fastest and easiest of all of them, and it only took a small amount of modification to account for the slightly different 45 Troopy Link chassis compared to the 40 that this bumper was designed for. After a bit of tweaking on the braces to slip it into place, it was a simple evolution to clamp the brackets to the chassis and drill new holes for mounting. With the bumper installed, it was time to connect the new lights, which identified a whole list of issues left by a series of previous owners. It was at this point I turned the camera off to speed up the process of sorting out the various splices in the interest of getting this ride ready for the road. It was becoming apparent that this Troopy could stand a fresh wiring harness swap in the not so distant future. Add another project to the long list. Fast forward a few more months to September of 21, when we decided it was time for the beast to officially hit the trails with us. With Overland Expo West coming up in just a couple weeks and a new turtleback on order to go behind the beast, we had our work cut out for us. Our 12-month lease was quickly coming to an end, and the potential of losing our garage space was a real possibility at the end of the year. This was more than just a rash decision, but in fact a necessity to ensure most of our important projects were completed before the next chapter. So, work began to fix a laundry list of weak points we had identified over the past 8 years and hopefully reduce the odds of a breakdown during our upcoming travels to Flagstaff, Arizona, then to the other side of the country for Expo East at Arrington, Virginia. First up was replacing the quote-unquote universal radiator hoses that recently failed on a quick trip around town. With this custom engine application, finding proper hoses is difficult, but we scored some flexible units, properly sized this time, and made the switch. We also ordered a couple extras to carry with us on the trail, just in case. The spark plug wires, along with some other important wiring, had taken some rat damage while stored in New Mexico 4 years prior, so it was time to replace the nibbled wires. While we were at it, we opted to replace the spark plugs and install some heat boots over the top, since the ram head style headers were notorious for toasting the nearby plugs. We've got some plans to reduce heat in the future with some ceramic coated headers to help keep the engine bay slightly cooler. While I didn't want to get too deep into this process before the travel deadline, I simply couldn't leave the engine wiring in its current state after inspecting some of the terminations and wiring insulation. So, after some quick fabrication of a bracket and digging out a 10-pole fuse block I'd been holding onto, I dove into making this rat's nest something a bit more manageable and maintenance friendly. It was also time to replace the 10-plus-year-old die-hard battery. Yes, you heard me right. This magical battery was still holding charge even after sitting flat for months on end in storage, multiple times. But its capacity was extremely questionable for the long haul, so we installed a fresh Odyssey unit, which, if rumors are true, was made in the exact same factory that used to make the trusty diehards. Either way, we have a long history with Odyssey units, and so went with our successful track record on this choice. While these multi-tap battery studs are better suited on on-road vehicles for stereo systems, I was at the mercy of what I had on hand and landed all the main connections for now. In the meantime, I put in an order with Caleb at Get Lost Overland for his new fancy battery terminals, which we'll install when we have time to revisit these connections. Up next was the fender wells. With a slightly wider stance thanks to the American Racing Mojave wheels and the 1-inch spider track spacers, throwing mud and rocks along the fresh paint was something that we wanted to avoid. So I utilized a trick I learned from the crew at Tactical Application Vehicles and ordered up some 1/4-inch thick ABS sheets from Grainger.com. The concept here is simple. Heat up the plastic until it's pliable and carefully form it into the arch that you're after. Here in the rear fender wells, I didn't want just a bit of protection to the exterior, but a true wheel well to capture those pounds and pounds of mud that can get trapped in the cavernous body. After a couple hours of trial and error, the ABS did its job and the end result turned out quite factory fresh, if I do say so myself. A little bit of fender welting completed the look and hid a few inconsistencies in my bends. This will also keep the grit and mud from collecting between the surfaces and introducing new rust. The front guards were even easier, and after about 6 hours, the entire rig was ready to start slinging some landscape. Needless to say, there were a myriad of other small projects we tackled during this marathon week of wrenching, which we opted to not film in the interest of time. Just a few of those items of note were the following: a Red Arc Tow Pro for the new Turtleback trailer, a Switch Pro panel which I relocated from the GX after installing the new Red Vision system over there, Morimoto headlights to help fix the current headlight which could barely outshine a kerosene lantern, Lightforce HTX2 lights for help on the dark trails, a Yaesu FDM300 ham radio, Vantop front and rear camera system to help with visibility, a selection of RAM mounts for tablets, phone, and camera mounts, charge cables for all the electronics, large enough mud flaps to make a truck driver jealous, a whole host of fuel system fixes and improvements, and several hours of power washing the 41-year-old Traca pop-top canvas to make it look as good as possible. And by the way, if you know someone who can help us replace this canvas, please let us know in the comments. No one we've asked so far has been interested in tackling this job. With all of our priorities mostly addressed, it was time for the most important part of the upgrades and remedies, the shakedown run. While we're far from finished with this project, we are so excited to start spending more and more time with it on the trail in order to envision our goals, then transform this mostly blank canvas into a worldwide ready adventure rig complete with kitchen, gear storage, water system, heating system, air conditioning, auxiliary power, and comfortable sleeping quarters for our family of 3. We know this 41-year-old beast certainly isn't as comfortable as our cushy IFS 4Runner and GX, but there's just something about a vintage overland rig that reconnects you to the earth and nature. Maybe it's the leaky seals that let in just a bit of dust and rain. Maybe it's the spine-hammering leaf springs riding over the slightest bump. Or maybe it's the faint fumes from the exhaust that alter your state of mind and take you back to much simpler times of raw steel and strong left legs from incessant shifting up and down mountain passes. Either way, it's pretty apparent why overlanding hasn't gained in popularity until now, because a rig like this takes a lot of work, attention, and skill to run the same trails that would be a snooze in something more modern. And I guess that is the core of our desire in this pursuit, to take on new challenges and experience new ways of exploring this incredible land from the seat of this classic Land Cruiser, better known as the Beast. All right, guys, there you go. Meet the Beast. Coming to a YouTube channel near you. Subscribe if you haven't already, because it's gonna be a wild ride. I can't even stop looking at it. Until next time, stay curious.
Lifestyle Overland is supported by viewers like you. If you like following our adventures, then please join us on patreon.com/lifestyleoverland. Thank you, painters, for all your support.